Hello and welcome to Dateline London. I'm Jane Hill. This week we are discussing Zimbabwe and its future. And we look at another apparently difficult few days in the Brexit talks. Is there stalemate between Britain and the rest of the EU? Plenty to discuss, and with me to talk about all of that, the Sunday Telegraph columnist Janet Daly, the American writer and broadcaster Jeff McAllister, the Africa specialist Dr. Vincent Magombe, and the Irish Times correspondent Suzanne Lynch. A warm welcome to all of you. Thanks for being with us today. So, when is a coup not a coup? Zimbabwe's military put 93-year-old Robert Mugabe under house arrest on Wednesday. He's been in power for 37 years. But as we go to air, tens of thousands of people are out on the streets of Harare demanding he stands down. He was briefly seen in public on Friday at a university graduation ceremony, or allowed to be seen, perhaps we should say. Vincent, who is currently in charge, do you think?
You mentioned the graduation. He actually slept through.
He was caught napping, wasn't he? Yes. The camera spotted that.
I think what's happening is so interesting. But this is sometimes in Africa, in the midst of pain and struggle, there's a lot of fun that goes on. And I can only smile at what is happening in Zimbabwe because, first of all, it's a coup that's not a coup. This is a president that's not a president. You know, in a certain way, in a more serious way, I think that we can comfortably say that Mugabe's political journey is at the end. He's politically dead. Sorry to use that. You can't use that for a 100-year-old man. I wish him very good health. But for God's sake, let him respect. There is in African traditions something where we say old people are supposed to be the wise ones. You know, usually they have a lot of sense. The young people sit around the fire and they tell us a lot of good things. Now, let Mugabe do the right thing. Let him respect his age. And this goes not just for Mugabe. In fact, this is very good for Africa because in my own country, Uganda, you have President Museveni, 70-something years. There's an article in the Constitution which says, limit 75. As we speak now, there are demonstrations, protests across the country. People are putting on red bands to say, please don't touch that article because he wants to change it and go the Mugabe way. Now, what are these old, fellas doing for Africa? They were liberators. Mugabe was a liberator. He got land for the people, even if he gave the land to the wrong people. But he liberated Zimbabwe from white rule. Now, he has destroyed his own credibility, trying to hang to power until he's 100 or...
Trying to create a family dynasty.
Family dynasty. But I think also in his own mind, there's been this warped suggestion that I will die the president and I'll be given the biggest type of, those types of Soviet send-off, with all those types of things. I think he's not going to get that now. And he could get it, by the way, because they are doing it in the right way. What we see is there's this thing of trying to say we respect him. He's an elder. He's a liberator. And let's not humiliate him. But he's being very stubborn.
Well, that's to the point, isn't it?
Yes.
He is, you make all those points, but he, as we understand it so far today, is still refusing to stand down. So in reality, what happens now? Because there are people out on the streets.
I think today is, for me, the real marker of what might come. The people going to the streets. I was waiting. Where are these people, the pro-democracy activists? Where they have had Morgan Tsvangirai talk and others. Let them not think the Zimbabwe army is going to hand power to them on a silver plate. They have to fight for it. And by the way, we see now tens of thousands of people on the streets. What I've heard is the ZANU-PF veterans and others are trying to steal the space within that march and say this is about Mugabe going. But what they want to do is then you have Mnangagwa, the vice president, ZANU-PF, he rules, they rig elections, ZANU-PF rules in perpetuity. It's going to be a battle. It has got to be fought for by the pro-democracy forces.
So the 93-year-old himself is
he's a non-entity here, but the armed forces
are adamant that they want to hold on to power.
Yeah. So how much of a revolution is it really if it's about putting in a new person who's not particularly young in ZANU-PF?
That is why what we can have comfort in is that the pro-democracy movement has been going for a while now.
Yeah.
Even if the leadership of MDC and so sometimes has been fractured doing this and that, but the people and pro-democracy activists have been, maturing. And all my hope is that they will now come out and keep coming out until they force the army. Because the army is now in the limelight. If they don't do the right thing,
but pro-democracy forces are always united at this point. It's what happens after that they fracture. Remember the Arab Spring. There's a terrible lesson there. You get rid of the great old man, the sentimental attachment to the liberator, and you end up with chaos. Or maybe you end up with democracy. Maybe this is very good news, but we won't know for a while yet whether it's terrible news or good news.
Well, in the next few days will show us if we see the pro-democracy movement refusing to go off the streets until the right thing is about setting up a transition government that includes all the groups and organizing for
the essence has to be democratic elections.
Yes.
So are they going to call democratic elections? How long will the transition government remain? Will it become, in effect, a kind of continuity, ZANU-PF? Will it be, sorry?
I'm sorry. I mean, this has happened this is one man now being removed. All the power structure around him continues. All of the intelligence, all of the corruption, all of the very tight levers on power. It's like getting rid of Stalin to get Beria. And so you're right that the fundamental long-term direction has to be in favor of democracy. But the democracy movement, of course, has been crushed before. I mean, it's not entirely crushed, but we've been through this, and a lot of people have been killed, and they have to be reticent about putting their necks on the line, especially because there is so much jockeying internally. I mean, it's interesting that it is a coup that's not a coup, done in order to look legitimate inside as well as with the outside world. And so all the forces are still going to try to hold on, obviously, as much as they can.
The point of hope is that we've already been there. We had a transition government. Morgan Tsvangirai was a prime minister. So it shows that even Mugabe himself and the ZANU-PF at one point or another started realizing that you can't just do it your own way.
But they did now manage to co-opt the whole thing and eliminate his real power.
They are now infiltrating the pro-democracy demonstrations, and they're manipulating them. That's the danger. And who are they manipulating in the name of? China is a big player in this, and China is becoming an economic superpower in the developing world. It's like during the Cold War, as Russia used to be. That was ideological, supposedly. This is economic, but this is a big deal, and it means that there is a confrontation potentially with the West for influence over this region. So this isn't being conducted in a vacuum.
Also, I mean, the role of the other countries around Zimbabwe, and to see Zuma this week, South Africa being hailed as a kind of a mediator force in these discussions was quite interesting, considering the issues that are happening internally, the own power struggles within the ANC, and Zuma being such a problematic figure himself.
I don't trust SADC. I don't trust African Union. African Union is just a club of all these, the same older, stealing money and so on. So SADC is divided, ruptured within its own, format. For example, we have Botswana, the president of Botswana, who has said categorically that Mugabe must go immediately. You now have a very interesting thing, because if forces from SADC were to go there, you would have mainly Angolan soldiers, but also South African soldiers. Now, we have a very interesting development within Angola. Since the old dictator, Dos Santos, went away, you have this new president who seems to be trying to say, look, we shouldn't move into just support lack of democracy. I mean, he's trying to develop some credentials. Just 2 days ago, he had started attacking the Dos Santos family. He fired Dos Santos' daughter, who has been running the oil thing. So I think that there is no unanimity within SADC to say we just want to impose ZANU-PF and Mnangagwa to rule. But all the same, I go back. Me in Uganda, in Africa, in Zimbabwe, it's the activists, pro-democracy movement that will define whether anything goes our way or not.
And so to your point, in terms of the next few weeks, I mean, you are clearly saying that the pro-democracy forces have to be united here, and that actually we are in a really pivotal few days.
When I knew I was coming to this program, there wasn't an issue of demonstrations. I was going to call for demonstrations to sort out that thing. Now it has come, but we're also seeing some fractures within the movement on the street. We see the tactics the ZANU-PF veterans and others refer to is to grab that space. Where the movements who demonstrated just a year ago, There were thousands and thousands. And that time they were facing the army, police, but they were not scared. So let them come out. And it should be, let them organize themselves like the Egyptian people. I know that we can say sometimes it doesn't work. But the Egyptian thing showed us that when people come together, they can sort of make a little change. Here we have so many factors. I think that the luck is on their side. Mugabe is going. That was the main block. Now we have the army, which is in two minds. Okay, we want change. If the army is under a lot of pressure, I believe they will want to do the right thing, because otherwise Mnangagwa and the army will continue facing a lot of pressure as they go on. Zimbabwe's economy will continue collapsing.
Facing
pressure, they need to do the right thing.
Facing pressure in the streets, demonstrations in the streets always eventually dissipate. Unless you can turn it into institutional change, systematic political change and reform, it goes nowhere. And it ends very often in violence and, really blood-curdling scenes, tanks in the streets. And I mean, the demonstrations in the streets are a sign of really serious disillusion and dissatisfaction.
That's why the next
few days,
if we have a transition government, including the opposition, then it will tell us where this movement is going.
A quick final thought on all of that, Vincent. Do we know where Grace Mugabe is? Does it matter? What does all of that tell us?
Hiding in the toilet. No, sorry, I'm just joking, but she was the target of the army officers. So if she's in Zimbabwe, she's really hiding. But we heard that she might have gone to Namibia, and I think it doesn't matter where she is right now. She cannot take power as she had intended.
The fact that she was the target of this, not a coup, means that it was a personal thing. It was about particular personalities. It wasn't about institutional change.
That's right.
So you get rid of the person you don't like, and you put in the person you do like, and that's the end of that. I mean,
that's
that could be the way it goes.
The Democrats must stand up. Yeah. And just like we're doing in Uganda, we're standing up. Zimbabweans have to do that.
Let's see whether that pans out in the coming days and weeks. Thank you.